So this this consortium is chaired by Yolita, Jean, and me, and we'll welcome 3 presenters in this session, and we also have our mentors here. So just a very quick a note that every presenter has about 10 minutes to present their proposal, and then followed by 10 minutes of comments, feedback, and questions from any of you, in the attendees, the participants who are joining this session. Welcome you to ask questions. If you want to ask questions, you can either type in chat or you can raise hand. Okay, so at the end, please stay in the session. At the end first, what we do at the end is that we will do a voting and voting for the presentation that you like the best, you think, the best or whatever in the 3, and we will use that to looking at presentations, DC presentation awards. So this is after the voting finish, or after three presentations, comments, feedback, and then we will do, so 3 of us will disappear for a while, for a very short while, and then we'll make decision, we'll come back. So please stay in the session. And we'll do a proper closing. Of course, we can't leave this without a proper closing. Okay, all right, so let's kick off now. And we have our first presenter, Rene, to present a model-driven software production method. So Rene, the floor is yours.
Okay, so can you hear me now? Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. That's called From Strategy to Code, a model-driven software production method. My name is Rene Noel, and I am making my PhD in the Prof Research Center in Universidad Politécnica de Valencia in Spain. So the topics of my presentation are the problem context, the research method, the current status, and the future work. The context of my research is an existing from requirements to code software production method that starts with modeling the system stakeholders as well as their goals and social dependencies with ISTAR. These models are then mapped into parts of the business process model using the GOBIS technique that allows to represent social dependencies as communicative events between actors. We use communicative events because it's a construct of the communication analysis in requirements engineering method. With communication analysis, we can model the flow of communicative events as well as the messages that the actors send to each other. So this message structure specification is rich in detail, and it allows the generation of most of the information system model. By using O method, we can model the system structure, behavior, specify the functionality, and the user interaction. And using the tool support of O method, it is possible to generate working code of the information system. So this is the requirements to code method, but it has some challenges that my thesis wants to address. The main challenges regard mostly to the goal modeling level. So as ISTAR gives freedom to the analyst to use the powerful constructs of social dependencies, goals, and refinements, but also gives freedom to the analyst to use it. So it is possible, we are aware of it, that the analyst could not model the points that we set as integration points. So, and this implies using information from the goal level to the business process level. Another challenge is that by specifying the too detailed tasks for each actor, we overlap the definition of task with the communicative events or the business process level elements. So we want to avoid overlapping between these 2 levels. And third challenge regards to keep an eye not only in the goals of the system stakeholders that are related directly, but with the organizational goals and the business motivation to perform these business processes or to change these business processes. And nowadays, adaptive or agile organizations are making these decisions to change their goals or to define new roles more frequently than usual, than traditional organizations. So we think that this context is available to define not only the business strategy, but also to define the organizational structure. For example, in agile frameworks, there is a tendency to model the organizational structure around business outcome or business capabilities, making these organizational units or agile cells the owners of their business processes, and also to keep aligned the information systems that support this operation. So, wrapping up the challenges, we think that there is a need to provide guidance for goal modeling in a model-driven development context, and also to capture business strategy knowledge because it is available for software engineering products and for scoping the processes. So the approach of this research is to design a LightStrat method. We have called LightStrat as lightweight strategy modeling method, and to connect it using extending GoBIS with the business process modeling method in order to be able to take this strategy and organizational structure knowledge and to map it to business process as its context or as domain context. I'm aware that there are several initiatives regarding strategic alignment, and also most of the business strategy concepts are being designed or developed by enterprise architecture initiatives. And also ISTAR has been extended for organizational modeling. And this is a good set of initial method descriptions and procedures to go from, to address the challenges that I mentioned before. So the research has an improvement goal that drives all the research questions, which is integrate business strategy knowledge into a model-driven software production method in order to provide traceability and as much automation as possible from strategic elements to business-driven, modular, and executable models of the information system, and what we call a strategy to code or S2C software production method. The design method is based on we are in the interpretation of design science and addresses four research questions, In the problem investigation, we address what are the existing modeling methods for business strategy and organizational structure, and how the information from this level is mapped into the business processes and system modeling levels. In the treatment design stage of the method, we address the research questions 2 and 3 that regards mostly to how to model business strategy and how to integrate these concepts in the given question of model-driven development. And we aim to validate these proposals using experiments and case studies, and also to providing feedback to the initial designs in what we using the approach of Karagiannis for agile modeling method engineering. The treatment validation regards evaluating 3 main hypotheses that regards mostly to the quality improvement, the efficiency improvement, and the user satisfaction improvement. In quality, there is a difference between the business strategy modeling method, where we want to test whether it captures the domain knowledge, and the whole S2C method. We want to improve the traceability, modularity, scalability, and maintainability of with respect to the original method. The current status of the research. We have a first initial version of LightStrat that is designed using situational method engineering and carefully selecting some constructs and relationships and the modeling procedure or modeling idea from business motivation model, from MyStar also, and from Archimate, is a procedure that starts by defining the external actors, for example, customers or competitors, whose behavior affects influences the organization. And then to define a goal that the organization wants to achieve under this influence. It could be more goals. And then defining two levels of strategic definition, a high level strategy or strategies, and a more detailed level of tactics. These tactics are assigned to organizational units because they have direct impact over the business process that these units own. And also the tactics must be measurable. So objectives are measurable ways to check if this tactics, or as well as the strategy, is being successfully implemented, and are assigned to roles inside the units. And finally, the products or services of the units are modeled as influences towards external actors, such as, for example, customers or partners, but also can influence another units. So we can analyze that unit in the context of this influence in a new cycle. This research will be presented in the next International Conference of Information System, and a current tool support in ADO-XX will be published in the second volume of the domain-specific conceptual modeling book. The initial R2C method and the From Strategy to Code vision are published also as book chapters. And the future work is mostly the empirical evaluation and improvement of FlyStrat, the design of the transformation technique, and the empirical validation of the whole S2C method, and also improvement in this agile modeling method approach. And I was writing my thesis. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much, and I am looking forward to your feedback and your questions.
Thank you, Rene. And so now let's start with either Geert or Janus. So as the two mentors of Rene's paper.
I can start if you want, Geert here. So Rene, thank you very much for a nice presentation, interesting work. I must also say your paper was quite complete with respect to methodology, a very mature research proposal. And as you show now, you already advanced in your research, so that's all very good. Still, I want to ask you some challenging questions. And my first question is, you relate business strategy with organizational structure, and then next with choices in the software design, actually, yeah, the impact that strategy has on the software that is supposed to support those organizational units. But I must confess that this is not clear to me. If I think about business strategy, I'm thinking about a strategy like customer intimacy. Yeah, I don't know if you know the framework of Tracy and Wiersma about what strategic choices companies have. But customer intimacy is one of these choices. So knowing the customer well by collecting data about the customer and serving him or her in the best possible way. And that's one choice a company has. Other choices are product leadership or cost leadership. So these are business strategies. But how do they translate now into organizational structure and software design? I really don't see the link. So can you explain this to me?
Okay, thank you for your question. It's a very interesting question, and let me give you an example. If a company is facing, for example, a new competitor which has an offer of a service that is more quickly delivered to the user, that is an influence towards the organization, and maybe after analyzing the organization, the directives could say, we are slow because we have our organizational structure separated, and we have to connect too many teams or too many areas to produce the same service, to offer the same service. So this is when you define, we want to be as fast as our competitor, and we want to, in order to make it, we have to get a new team or a new area that is only focused on that service or on that product. And also they have to own their business process and also the systems that support this business process. That's how I see this alignment.
Okay, I think your example makes sense, but that's just one example. I can also imagine business strategies that do not directly have an impact on the organizational structure. So please think about this. It's related to, I think, the scoping of your research. So what particular kind of strategy or effect of strategy are you considering in your research? Secondly, I think one of the goals is, and you're already doing this with this thread light, to develop a business strategy modeling approach. It was not so clear to me how you're going to do this, because on the one hand, in your proposal, you write, okay, we look at existing extensions of iStar and enterprise architecture modeling and Archimate and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, you also criticize these approaches because they apparently do not capture all relevant business strategy constructs. So how will you build a new modeling language if current language are not good enough? So how will you design an improved version, actually? That's my question.
Okay, I think that the constructs and relationships are in the enterprise architecture frameworks, however, they are scattered. The one thing that I criticize is that I want to, or the improvement of the method looks forward the integration of two visions that are actually present in iStar, which are the definition of strategy and also social elements, such as organizational structure. And that, as far as I know, as I agree, that is not present in any of the frameworks. But is just a specific requirement that are two elements modeled together in this vision of changing the strategy and changing the organization structure.
Okay, I see. Okay, good. I think you need to maybe consider this a little bit further. I compare it to value modeling languages, where they have this concept of value, but you cannot capture like all things relevant to value in just one construct. And I also doubt whether all things relevant to strategy can just be captured in one modeling construct called strategy. I noticed in your figure that you also had tactic, but of course, tactic is not strategy, it's completely different. That tactic is not a strategic element. So maybe think about if there are some dimensions about strategy that are also worthwhile to capture explicitly in models because they could have an impact on organizational design choices and software design choices. So just as a suggestion for your future research. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have Janos. Thank you, Gert. It's very active discussion.
I can continue where Gert left. I think I've done, I don't know, strategy modeling for 25 years without ever using a construct called strategy. But okay, I think the purpose of Doctoral Consortium is maybe not to discuss the very details of the work. On a broader term, I would like to basically think a little bit about risks. Well, I mean, when I read your work, I was very interested. And one of the reasons I was very interested is because I had a PhD student who was trying to do something like this, starting from an MSAT paper in, I think it was in London, 2011. I think the paper was bringing closer enterprise modeling to model-driven development and so on. And there, we almost got there. But there were a number of, I think, risks. I think also you are not fully aware of. And one of them would be this sort of, because enterprise modeling, strategies, goals, they are on the organizational level. At the end of the day, we would like to generate code. So there is a fair bit of gap between. And so how to bridge that gap? I think both you and him started by thinking, okay, let's take something existing, let's pick the good things out, let's create a new method and generate from that. That is in principle reasonable, but it takes a lot of time. Then what happens is the proof of this pudding is actually code generation at the end, does the code. I mean, and that brings us to the second area of, or maybe I would like to hear your initial thoughts of what tool. My student, he decided to implement everything from scratch in Eclipse. And that required a lot of time, obviously. And at the end, he ran out of funding and he got a very interesting job somewhere else. So that's the end of that story. So what are your thoughts about the tooling environment in which you can actually do this?
Well, thank you, Yanis. Well, I will start by the last question. Well, actually, their own method is supported by Integranova tool. Integranova allows to generate code. There is also another tool for communication analysis, and that also has an implementation of the transformation algorithm. But there are technical elements to be resolved in order to make it the integration, because they are two systems in different platforms. But there are just technical difficulties, and I think that that gap could be closed without too much effort. That's an example. So my work, my work is to give tool support for the strategy modeling method, and to allow to connect with the existing communication analysis tool. And I am aiming to do this with the ADO-XX framework. I don't know if you know it, but and I am currently working in the ADO-XX framework. I have an initial implementation of the method. It's very basic. It's just make the diagram and ensure that the modeling procedure has been fulfilled. Is compliant with the modeling procedure. There is a step
this worries me even more, because now you have several tools. ADO is also a difficult tool to do interesting things, like to hack in a modeling language that you use for drawing. That's easy. So now tell us even more. How does ADO and the inter something tool, and how will all that interplay? What will they do to each other?
Well, our first approach will be the generation of connect this element through web services, or to design APIs to get the, for example, this is a raw example, but generating the models in a JSON format, taking it in an API, transform it, and set it as the input of the other elements, of the other tools. That could be challenging. I know that there is.
I understand the technicality, but the question is, what will the API transform? So what will want to, I suppose it's ADO that will generate something. So what will it generate that will then be fed into the communication analysis?
You say what concepts I will map, or what will be the transformation from the strategic level to the business process level?
Yeah, that's one thing to consider.
For example, I think that by defining these organizational units as business process context, we can start communication analysis project for modeling the business process of that unit. So that's a way to map, and that could be a way to technically define that this context is a new communication analysis project, for example. Like, and inside this new communication analysis model, some initial concepts could be mapped from the business strategy model.
Sure, okay, I get that. And where will we get the other details needed for code generation? Like, how will the screens look like? Where will the different data fields and how will they be called? And I get that maybe the intention, okay, the workflow with the processes, and the third thing, which is data and the forms, and how will all that work?
Well, at the communication analysis level, you can specify elements such as the data that the actor sends to each other. So that is supported for the current tool. And also, the existing tool also generates a class diagram with most of the elements that can be mapped from the business process level to the system level. For example, you have the class structure that is given by the messages structure, and some methods that are related to the transition between different communicative events at the workflow level. There is the Sergio España's thesis is it provides a full set of...
It's a thick thesis, I know.
Yeah, may I ask a quick question, Rene? So which year are you in your PhD?
I am starting my second year.
Oh, I think you still have more than half of your PhD journey, I think, to consider all these comments. And I think this is, to me, this is quite challenging, and yeah, and hope all the best. And I think this discussion is really interesting, and maybe Rene, Geert, and Janus, you can, have a chat. I think this, after this, and then it might come out with some really nice outcome. I can see it's leading to really good direction. Thank you very much, Rene, Geert, and Janus. So let's now move on to our next presenter, Alireza, and he will be presenting us on his PhD of information sharing for customized dynamic visual analytics. You ready, Alireza? Great.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Okay, good. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Alireza Khakpour, and I am a PhD student at the Department of Computer Science at Ostfold University College in Norway. My supervisors are Professor Ricardo Colón Palacios and Professor Antonio Martini. The title of my paper is Information Sharing for Customized Dynamic Visual Analytics, a Framework. Okay, today I'm going to, this is the outline of my presentation. First, I will briefly present an introduction about my PhD project along with explaining the problem domain. Then I will talk a bit about the project background, followed by research questions and the methodology. And finally, I will show the project progress and some of the preliminary results. Fast-moving consumer goods sector is among the largest industries in the world. This is where everyday consumer products are produced and supplied. But in order to respond to the increasing needs of consumers, there is a need to have a flexible production and delivery of goods through a well-operating supply chain. On the other hand, the FMCG supply chain partners generate an enormous amount of data that provides the ability to ground the supply chain processes based on the knowledge gained from these data. And one of the tools to analyze supply chain heterogeneous data and generate insights and knowledge dynamically is, of course, visual analytics. But to integrate visual analytics into the decision support systems in various points of the supply chain, we need the proper information flow within the partners. In this process, a vast amount of data need to be ingested and consolidated from several sources and to be made ready for further analysis. Currently, although the FMCG supply chain is data rich, the exchange of information within supply chain partners are poor. And this is basically due to the lack of an underlying framework that can define various aspects of a visual analytics system for supply chain. So in order to address this, in this project, I formulated 3 main activities to execute. First, exploring the data collection and information sharing for visual analytic. Second, exploring big data visual analytic techniques. And then exploring the development of a framework for visual analytics. Wong defined the VA as the formation of abstract visual metaphors in combination with a human information discourse that enables detection of the expected and discovery of unexpected within massive dynamically changing information spaces. From this definition itself, we can see that how VA in supply chain is the convergence of various disciplines. Disciplines like information system, where it deals with information flow integration and data and knowledge management when it comes to explanatory data analysis, the intersection of VA with BI, where it takes care of combining business information and management decisions, artificial intelligence when providing automated analytical capabilities, and finally HCI by creating interactive visualizations. So to address this conceptual framework consisting of interlinked concepts from various disciplines can provide an understanding of the constructs of a supply chain visual analytics system and its processes. A framework that can describe interaction and information design and demonstrate how data transformation and analytic computation are utilized and integrated in providing the visual representation of the data analysis. And based on these, we have formulated our research questions. The first research question is, what is the desired data flow to integrate visual analytics into supply chain decision-making? And what are the existing obstacles within this flow and how to overcome those obstacles? Second is, how can the big data analysis techniques and tools be adapted for processing the supply chain big data for visual analytics, and how can the visualization tools and techniques being implemented for providing a data-driven decision support? In order to tackle the questions, we are going to adopt a design science research method, where basically constituted of 3 main cycles of work. First is the relevance cycle, where we analyze the application domain by formulating the problem statement and identifying the opportunities. The outcome of this cycle will be requirements that we have to address, and we're going to conduct interview studies for this phase. Second, it comes into a rigor cycle in which some grounding and knowledge about the research topic is identified based on scientific theories and expert consultations. In this, we're going to conduct an SLR, systematic literature review, along with interview studies again. And third is to design and evaluate an artifact, which is in this case is a framework. And finally, we're going to evaluate our framework with the help of case studies and with the help of our industrial partners of the project. Here are some of the preliminary results. We have already conducted a systematic literature review, which is published in a journal paper. The main objective of the SLR was to identify the current types of VA used for supply chain activities, and also to recognize different supply chain decisions that can be supported with visual analytics. And finally, to identify different types of data that we need for addressing those decisions. So we had 2 research questions. How has VA been used to support the supply chain activities and which VA techniques or tactics have been used in supply chain. We have used the supply chain operation reference model developed by Association for Supply Chain Management to categorize our results. And we also provided a supply chain decision area categorization. And this categorization of VA techniques and methods has been proposed based on various supply chain processes based on the SCORE model. And then finally, we mapped the need of specific data for each of the applications and decisions that they intend to support. So from the SLR, the results of the SLR provides the ability to understand the decision areas that a visual analytics system can support, following with some specific data requirements for each of the tasks, along with the appropriate visualization techniques that needs to be implemented. The decision areas are to be used to address the first part of the framework, that is the identification of decisions and tasks that should be supported with the help of data analytics. Now we want to see how the industry is dealing with the topic. So we also from the previous work found that the data analytic activities are very much dependent on the people that deals with the actual analysis. So we decided to conduct an interview study with the people involved with the data analytic and visualization activities, and the potential participants are from our project partners. Three types of participants are there: VA solution developers as enablers of VA, data analysts as providers of VA, and decision makers as users or consumers of the VA visual analytics. The anticipated outcome of the interview study is to explore the existing infrastructure and to find out the available data and tools they currently have, specific requirements for a VA system in supply chain related activities, and to find the challenges in data analysis and visualization in supply chain activities, and more importantly, to characterize the analysis process. So to conclude, in this project, we are developing a framework for supply chain visual analytics that should include identification of decisions and tasks that should be supported with the help of data analytics and visualization, then identification of required data for the corresponding visualization tasks, characterization of the required team of visual analytics, defining the supply chain analytic tasks as a VA problem, implementation of VA techniques and tasks, and finally, interpretation of the VA results for a decision support system. And thank you for your attention. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Alireza. It's a quite interesting topic, and thank you for being on time. And now I think I would invite Massimo as the mentor, who reviewed your proposal.
Thanks, Alireza. I have a couple of some questions, but let's go step by step. The first one is your basic hypothesis is that you need the visual analytics for, let me say, supporting supply chains. On the basis of which you take this hypothesis? I explain myself. Typically, visual analytics is needed when you need to do analysis interactively and generally in something like control rooms or something like that, because the visual part and the interactive part is very important. So why in supporting the supply chains you need this? So why you cannot have, for example, batch data mining algorithms that can provide results to be exploited? So why do you need this interactive and visual part? I don't see this basic research question in your work.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And the fact is the amount of data that different partners in the supply chain are generating is very huge. But, and there are normally multidimensional data, and there are many hidden patterns in those data. So one of the techniques to interact with the data and identify those hidden patterns can be visual analytic. I'll give you an example for example in demand management. The visual analysis of the point of sales data is very much useful nowadays, but the problem with that at the moment is that these point of sales data normally belongs to retailers, and the information flow between partners are limiting the process of analysis of this data. So I'm trying to demonstrate how visual analytic can help different partners so that this data flow happens throughout the chain.
Yeah, I understand, but let me, we are discussing, right? So it's because we have to provide you, but in what you say, I see that the core problem is not the visual analytics, but is the integration of the data. So for some reason, you have, before to solve the problem, how to integrate along a supply chain data coming from heterogeneous sources. And on this topic, there have been something like 30 or 40 years of research that somehow you should build upon. And if it's so, the question will be, in what do you think to be novel, or what additional challenges do you add to any other traditional information or data integration approach? So why the supply chain in your case is a novel problem?
Yeah, the gap at the moment is that the visual analytic is being used separately in different departments and in different sectors of the supply chain. And what I'm trying to do is to formulate a process that we show a type of visual analytic system that benefit all the partners, so that they can share the data and they can kindly formulate a pipeline for collection of the data and making visual analytic systems. The issue is that it is not, at the moment, it is not clear that which decisions and which tasks can be supported with the visual analytic. Analysts normally do some analysis and it ends there, and it doesn't go to the hands of decision makers properly, maybe. But I'm trying to formulate that in a framework. So different aspects of this can be defined.
At what year are you or your PhD?
I'm in first year.
First year. So other suggestion. When you do visual stuff, typically a good approach is to adopt a user-centered design. So you have interaction in front of you. You want that the analysts, as you said, are able to use. So have you thought about using such a type of techniques to get better the requirements for your framework? Because another point that I see is that you are not considering the analyst, the end user of your system. So you always speak of visual analytics and data sharing as if they were the same. Conversely, from the user point of view, are two different topics. So do you envision to adopt like focus group, or to have some validation, not validation, some cooperative building of the visual analytics tool? Because you need intensely to have user studies to see what they really do, to prototype dashboards and to see how they react to such a type of dashboards.
Yeah, at the moment I am interviewing some of some of the people from our project partners. Some of the participants are those analysts that actually interact with the analytic tools. And among the questions are the limitations that they're finding in their work. And I want to identify what is the current issues they are having with the tools, and maybe from that I will recognize those issues. And during the validation process, I may develop a prototype of a dashboard that can address that issues and evaluate it in a usable test.
And such a dashboard, for what you get, the intuition that you had from now, having you performed an SLR, what will be the novelty of your dashboard or your approach with respect to existing literature on visual analytics? You performed an SLR, so you know the state of the art very well, I assume.
Yeah, the fact is there are various visualization tactics that they are using at the moment. For example, addressing the multidimensionality of the data is one of the tactics. So there are many others. So what I am thinking at the moment, I think it's a bit ambitious and difficult to achieve, but is to give the analyst the ability to choose the visualization tactic at the beginning of their analysis. For example, if they want to do dimensionality reduction analysis, so that they can get those types of visualization elements that is really fit for dimensionality reduction, for example. And I think at the moment, the tools that are out there, the dashboards that are out there are either very specific to one particular task, or they are too broad and not useful, for example, specific for a supply chain and a visual analytics system. So
what are they using in, you say that you are based on a real project. What are they using as, for example, type of dashboard? So can you give practical examples of the tools that they are using and why you see that they are not satisfying? You said that this is your experience. Because my impression, I explained the rationale. My impression is that typically visual analytics techniques are very specific when they need to overcome performance issue. If you have a user in front of a dashboard and you need an interaction type of a few milliseconds over gigabyte of data, you need to be very optimized in the algorithm that moves the information to something visual. When they are very broad, it's because they don't deal too much attention to the large volume of data, but typically needs to the analyst to have first a high-level overview, and then he can start to start digging into some tools, some aspects. So the fact that you want to be general and to deal with big data at the same time, I am a little bit skeptical, because I still don't see when you need to provide your contribution, if it's the visual part, in specific techniques, so algorithms that will be the back end of your dashboard, or in the methodology to build the dashboard. That is another point that is related to the data sharing. So now I leave you speak, but my suggestion is that you start focusing on very specific issue along the overall idea, because otherwise you risk to be too broad and not to have any novel contribution. So this is why I ask practically, what are your issues, the issue that you tested with your user?
Yeah, that's one of the goals to understand from the interview study that I'm going to do. From the beginning of the project, we had this issue that they don't have a clear view of what type of decisions or what type of tasks they are going to use the visualization for. And the problem is that they have a lot of data and they know that they can use visual analytic for getting insights from those data, but the decisions that they can support with the tools or the tasks that they want to do is not clear yet. So part of the project is to identify those tasks, as I had in my last slide as well. So this is a first part of the framework, to identify the decisions and tasks. Exactly. And I think I found some of the decisions and tasks that have been addressed in the literature, but in the next step, I want to see what is happening in the industry and then connect those two together. From the, yeah.
Can I add something? I think I didn't review your proposal, but through the discussions, based on what Massimo, the feedback and comments from Massimo, that I very agree that I think you're quite ambitious. And look, this is your first year. I think one of the main purposes of Dr. Consortium here is really to help you, with maybe narrow the scope if you're too ambitious. I mean, ambitious is good, but you need to be realistic that you only have 3 or 4 years to finish the PhD. And I think because I have some experience, I also have some recent experience of some of my students looking at visual analytics and interactive visual analytics. And you have to be really careful here. And you want to be very agree with Massimo that I think you listed 3 kind of users of your VA as the data analyst, finally the decision maker, the second one, someone, the provider. And I think to be realistic, I think to do some work in depth, you probably focus just on one end user group, either being data analysts and analysts, or the end user, the decision maker, the business decision maker. And I think you will understand, so what is your strengths? What is your focus? If your focus is really on data mining, then you probably just be looking at the data analyst as your end user. Otherwise, you go to the business stakeholders and you feel that when you talk with them, they won't have much idea about what you're talking about. So the gap is too big. So I think either focus on one user group, rather than spread into 3, user, provider, and decision maker. Of course, the impact is big, but I think there's a lot of challenges. The other thing I also agree with Massimo mentioned that if you talk about visual analytics as your main contribution, you will be asked by visual analytics expert, and they will tell you that the visual analytics that the name means that the visual techniques is to drive your data mining analytics techniques to use. And as data mining, process mining person, we're very driven by data analytics, and then use visual analytics as sort of like interface or representation layer to link this gap. So I think you also be clear where position from. And if you talk about the CHI, computer, human-computer interaction experts, they'll ask you, what is a user? You need a user-centric, driven to drive your research, to drive your VA design. So again, understand your positioning, your focus, and then really find a specific focus for your PhD.
Yeah,
that's my input. That's my feedback based on your discussion. Hopefully that will provide you some of the useful comments that you can consider for your PhD. Sorry, Massimo, I jumped in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's
very good suggestion. I will really take a note of that. But this was my challenge from the beginning. Actually, the topic is very broad, and as I also presented, it is in different disciplines, and it is very challenging to bring it, narrow it down to one discipline itself. Yeah.
So hopefully, so you take this will be valuable and helpful for you, and we'll give you some time to think about it. But I think now let's move on to the next. And thank you, Alireza. Thank you, Massimo. It's very interesting. discussion. So now we have our third presenter, Sebastian, to present his PhD topic on situation-specific development of business models for services in software ecosystems. Okay, so you can start, Sebastian.
So you now see the presentation, yes or yes? It works. So
yeah,
yeah,
it works. All good.
Of course. Yes, thank you also for me that I have the invitation to come to this doctoral consortium. So my name is Sebastian Gottschalk from Paderbom University. My supervisor is Professor Dr. Gregor Engels, and today I want to speak about my research topic about situation-specific development of business models for service providers within software ecosystems. And so on a really high level, what I use is I take digital method engineering, which is used for many years in computer science to construct software development processes and bring that to the topic of business model development. And here, especially to this business models of the service providers. But before going into my topic, let me quickly structure the talk for today. So at first, I will motivate my problem and also state my research question. Based on that, I will stick a little bit to the background of digital method engineering and show my research approach based on design science research. Out of that, I also want to show you a preliminary solution and show what should be the expected contributions out of my thesis. So, but at first, let me motivate everything. And this is who not from you wants to build some kind of app and getting rich with that. So software ecosystems are some kind of broad term, and I just looked directly on mobile ecosystems. So mobile ecosystems are highly attractive, but also really competitive markets for mobile app developers. So when you look at the ecosystems currently of Google and Apple, you see that billions of dollars of revenue is built by also billions of app downloads. So this is a positive side, but we also have this negative sides. There are already existing millions of these apps, and those are already built by hundreds of thousands of app developers. So when you want to place a new app in this app store, it is really important that you find the real, the right business model for that. And business model here means not just the revenue stream, so making advertisement or so on, but also what is your target customer, what value you propose with your feature set, how to marketize your customer, and so on. So there are a lot of things in your business model. And when we discovered the first development processes for that, we saw more and more that they depend actually on the situation in which the app developer is. So if he, for example, considering a mass market or a niche market, or if he has high or low development resources. And out of that, I stated my research question, which is basically how to enable the tool-supported situation-specific development of business models for service providers within software ecosystems. But before I show you my approach, I quickly wanted to go to the background in terms of digital method engineering, where I based on. So digital method engineering promotes situation-specific method construction on the fly by using existing method components. So you can see that here on the slide, you have this method base where a lot of method components in, and you have this method engineer who has some kind of construction guidelines. So how to arrange those components inside those method base to construct a methodology. And he has some kind of situational factors which he can cover inside this construction process. And out of both things, he basically constructs some kind of development method and gives that to the project manager. And then the project manager can enact this method to build a software which a development process which perfectly fits to his own situation, or to the situation of the project. And I'm doing that by using, I think, like the most of presentation we have seen here in the doctoral consortium, using design science research. So design science research is basically building an innovative IT artifact based on some kind of iterative cycling around the problem and the evaluation. So I personally use the design science research based on Vaishnavi and Küchler, and it consists here of this 5 steps of getting aware of the problem. Then you suggest some kind of solution, then you develop the solution and evaluate it. And this you do several times. And then at the end, you come hopefully to a good conclusion. And for the thesis, I plan to have 3 of these cycles. So the first one I've already completed in the past. Currently, I'm at my 2nd cycle. And in the future, I planned also a 3rd cycle. And through this talk, I want to quickly go with you through the things I've already covered. So let me start by the first step. So at the beginning, to getting aware of the problem what we aim to solve, I basically review literature on business model development and also analyze various tools of business model decision support systems. And out of that, I derived the following 11 generic, more or less generic requirements a solution should have. So I cannot cover everything here, but we can speak about some of them. So one is comprehensiveness. So a development method for business model should cover the whole development cycle of the business model. So just from getting aware of the problem you aim to solve with your business to the validation of the business model. So then we have situativity. I spoke about this before, that the development process or method needs to fit to the situation of the respective person who uses that. And understandability means that we have in business modeling a really collaborative process where a lot of stakeholders are involved. Therefore, it is really important that everyone has the same understanding about what's going on in every step. And out of that, what I have done, I had at the beginning based some kind of conceptual part which solves like parts of my problems I have found in this domain. And basically I have 4 conceptual parts which I want to speak about now. So I have this business model development engineering, what is more or less building the development method. So the different steps you need to do to create a business model, for example, doing customer interviews, calculating business outcomes and so on. And you have the business knowledge, model knowledge engineering. This is basically about the knowledge you need to create a business model. This is like, do I use a revenue stream, an advertisement, or a sales, and so on. Then out of both, I create some kind of method as a method construction, and then at the end I enact that. And here you can also see that we are basically matching of these generic requirements to our solution requirements. For example, comprehensiveness I solve by having a method repository and assistance in this method selection. Situativity I also cover by a context characterization and this assistance in selecting the right method which fits to the situation. And understandability we have also covered by providing really understandable things to the methods. And so out of that, I'm currently integrating all the stuff. So we have built several small prototypes and such stuff, and currently I'm integrating everything together. And then I'm conducting a case study for building the business model of a local event platform, which we develop in another research project by us. But now I want to give you a quick overview what should be in the future. So the end of my goal should be a modularized concept of situation-specific development. And here I want to show you how that should look like at the end. So you can see, I think the 4 conceptual parts are already here with this A, B, C, D. And I have the 5 stakeholders of this meta method engineer, the method engineer, the domain expert, the business developer, and other stakeholders. And the idea is that the meta method developer develops the meta methods both for the methods and for the knowledge. Then the domain experts, or more of them, go to the method engineer and tell them, hey, this is cool stuff of methods and knowledge. Can you please add that to the repository? And the method engineer formalizes the stuff and puts that into the repository so that it's reusable. Then next, the business developer comes to the method engineer and tells him, hey, I have the following problem and I'm in the current situation, can you help me? And the method engineer takes the situation into consideration, and out of both repositories, he basically constructs this business model development process. And at the end, this business model development process is enacted by the business developer. And on this process, he can collaborate with other stakeholders. And now I want to go a little bit to this in action, how that looks like. So we can see here that in this process, we can have multiple stakeholders like customers, business developer, also the real developer who's developing the tool and so on. And we have this executed process, for example, that you need at the beginning, conduct customer interviews, you derive a value proposition and so on. And these tasks you are doing there can be linked to some kind of artifacts. So you have input artifacts and output artifacts. So for example, out of the conduct interviews, there comes some kind of customer information. Or out of create business model, there could be the business model canvas come out of that. And we divide them into the 2 external artifacts. So artifacts we cannot modify. They are external out of our approach, and internal like canvas models, which we can really work on with our knowledge models. And last but not least, we have also this modules which somehow can provide some kind of decision support into the process. So we have like things like this, for example, canvas module, which can at the end change those business model canvas or a value proposition canvas. And we can have also a calculation module or external tool like the mock-up tool. And so at the end, we want to evaluate the whole thing in a user study on a lean development seminar in our university. And now I come on the last slide to the expected contribution. So we expect contribution in the evaluated concept, the modularized architecture, and the software tool. So first we have the situation-specific development of business models. And here we see also a contribution in how to integrate the methods and the knowledge to provide a real deep decision support to some kind of business developer. Second, we have this modularized business model development architecture. Here we can see that from a literature review, we see that a lot of researchers starting from scratch when they're building some kind of business model development tools. And here's a hope that they can use our business modeling tool as some kind of reference architecture, so they can build their own stuff on top of that instead of starting from scratch. And the third one is the open source implementation of a software tool. And here we hope that practitioners and especially, for example, mobile app developers can use our tool to develop their business models. And this is everything I want to show for today. And I thank you for your attention. And now I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Sebastian. That's quite well thought of the presentation. And I'll invite our Yolita and Jean, who will start first as both your mentors.
Okay, I can start. So thank you very much for the presentation. Very nice presentation, clear for me at least. So and I also am happy to see that you are working in a method engineering domain and applying situational method engineering principles to build your approach. I have a few comments regarding the scope of your PhD. Be careful with the scope. You go too large to my understanding, probably. So the comments I have, maybe they are about the slide 14. If you can go back to the slide 14, if I remember well. Yes, here. So for example, what you call meta-method engineering, for me, it's a method engineering theory. And the situational method engineering domain, we have already several approaches that you could just choose and apply for your method building approach. So what you call development method, meta model, either you, what you call meta model is not what I understand, because in method engineering level, in method theory level, the meta level, in fact, you define what is the concept of the method. In situational method engineering, generally we define what is the component of a method, how it is, from what is built, how it is defined, and how we will combine them to build situational methods. So for me, this meta level exists. You don't really need to reinvent the wheel. You just take one of the approaches and maybe you adapt a little bit and should work. And when we go with this method level, so you need to build your repository in your domain, because this is the business model creation part. You need to collect all method chunks or method components that would help you to build business models. So you can start in this level, not need to go upper, I mean meta level, need to reinvent the method engineering itself, to my understanding. Or maybe you can do some extensions or adaptations that would better fit your case. But you can start in the method engineering level to build the repository. And then maybe the most difficult thing in situational methods engineering is to work with the contextual requirements, the situation itself, how to define the situation, how to make fitting these components to a particular situation. Also, another idea I had watching your presentation is, in fact, what you need to build probably, because you have a quite narrow domain, business model, building business model fitting to some situations. So now you're looking for business model for service providers, then you could extend to other domains potentially. So you could build kind of method family where you have a generic process, you know, and in every step of the process, you have in the repository different method components, and then this general process guides you to build your method by selecting these method components from the repository, but you already have a skeleton, kind of skeleton of the method. So you can look for the papers. There are not too many, but there are a few publications about the notion of method family. And I think in your context would fit very well. So yeah, that's my comment, mainly comments or questions. Yeah, well, if you are interested to have some references or have a chat with me later or sometime later, you are welcome. So the questions, yeah, no, more have comments on questions. Maybe John have questions. Or if you want to comment about
I can also comment on that just in 1 minute. At first, thank you for the valuable feedback. Especially, I have never heard about method families, so that there is something like that. So I also try to make that I have this development process, and then I can select different methods and components on the fly out of that. And I'm also thinking about what we have also spoken about at the last conference at MSAT, that maybe not narrow down to service providers, but more getting more general, because the concept works also in other domains, and then just using service providers more as an application domain.
Well, the method family would really fit for some particular domain, like business model for service providers, because you have a scope that allows you to have a limited number of method components, you know. And so you build your family, and then you define different ways to progress in this method and to choose the components. So you can manage that. I mean, when you go to the broader scope, that's a different story. You know.
But just a comment on the. Well, first, I guess a comment on scope, because I mean, when you're talking about software ecosystems, there's obviously some platforms, and so what's the characteristics of that, and that would be different from different kind of domains. So when you first, but I guess that's only examples. When you look on mobile ecosystems, they are very simple with 2 platforms and most apps available for both. But I guess that is more as an example. I mean, there, I guess when we're talking about broadening the scope, this can also be taken into account, that it's much more variety when you are into other domains based on other kind of platforms, which might be more open or more closed or whatever. When you also, I guess, as examples of business modeling approaches, you talk about business model canvas. But I guess that is also only an example.
Yes. So what we saw just a lot of also was industry partners in the practice, is that they are often using like canvas models themselves. So not just the business model canvas, also we saw this value proposition canvas is often used. Yeah. And also the like platform canvas we also see. We have also developed some kind of canvas by our own and test them in the past with practitioners. So what we see from people in practice is they like this canvas view and not just like more E3 value with complex relationships and so on.
No, that's fine. Just to think more broadly, because I mean, I think, for instance, the business model canvas, the Ostfold, it's very old-fashioned in the sense because it only focuses on economy and not on other kind of, say, if you want sustainable solutions, you also have to take into account social aspects, ecology. But that makes it more interesting too, in a sense, and it's clear that you have a need to have a broader or I mean kind of called method engineering approach, because there are a lot of different approaches, the different kind of canvases, if you like, and also all the ways of representing business models, obviously. So that it's actually, you have to choose from a large variety of approaches to this towards a large, potentially a variety of types of ecosystems, types of platforms, etc. And then again, it can be, this can obviously quickly explode. so I guess one can aim for a kind of generic model for this, and then have examples that are more narrow, and then the point is, okay, when you do validation relative to maybe more, call it controlled examples, cases, you have then to argue for, okay, is this generalizable or not? So
yeah, I can quickly comment on that. Just one sentence. And so the idea is that you have this canvas meta model, and out of that you can derive the canvas models you want to have. So we're working with canvas model, but in general, the method engineer can create every canvas model he wants to use. And then for our application, we will choose some of them and narrow it down about that.
Yeah, but what I would like to add regarding what said John, it's very good, good point, because you say canvas meta model, but maybe it's not just canvas, maybe it's meta model of business model. You know, that means that your business model you can produce could take different shapes. Could be in a shape on canvas, could be in a shape on, I don't know what kind of models. So you need to maybe do research what shape could take a business business model. And then in your repository will be not canvas knowledge repository, but business model kind of definition repository. And so depending then on how many different shapes it could take, this is one of the situational parameters. That means you decide what kind of business model you want to produce. And that also makes sense to build a method family. That means one path in the method could build one kind of business model, another path in the family could build different kind of business model, you know? That's really interesting. You know, don't because canvas is too limited as concept. Maybe not all business models are represented as canvas. Then if you tell me that all business models just fit into canvas, that's fine also, but maybe not. Yeah. Okay. But good luck with your work. It's interesting work.
Thank you.
We look forward to see the results.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Yolita and John. I think that's very interesting. Yeah. So I would like now to open the polls to vote for the, one out of these three for the session, the presentation that you like the best, that you think is the best. And let me open this, select. Allow, yeah. Okay, so I think I will launch it. Yeah, I think I've opened the polls to all our panel participants.
You can open to all attendees, I guess.
I only have the
panel. Okay.
Yeah, I only have the option.
The other attendants are also able to vote.
Is that the attendees are now viewing questions? I only have the option of open to panelists.
Yeah, so that is in addition.
So
you can think in this other setting where you have a panel of people, and then with their own views, and then the attendance is to vote for who they like the best or something like that. And but this is another setting.
Okay. And I think we have someone from Marcelo said that he was able to vote.
Yeah, so it says 14 out of 30
Okay.
have voted so far, I think.
Okay.
And
So
panelists.
Yeah,
all
I'm
the
not
attendees
allowed
can
to vote as host, but I can see what's going on.
Yeah, we cannot, as a host, we cannot vote, but we can see what's going on still. Yeah, all good. Okay, I can see there's this 7.
Don't vote for your colleagues. Vote for really what you like.
Yeah, yes.
It's secret vote.
Yeah, secret.
Secret vote. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to see who vote for who. We only see the numbers.
No, we don't see who vote
No,
for.
no. Yeah, we have 55% voted.
Let's wait 2
Let's
minutes.
wait. Yeah.
2 minutes more.
Oh, the setting 2 minutes more. Yes, exactly.
Didn't decide yet.
We still have time to decide.
We don't have, you know, the summary like in Eurovision.
And here is the Norwegian votes.
That would be nice. Yeah.
It's hard to make a decision, isn't it? All are very good. I found all are very good and all very sorted.
But I think it's, I mean, I think those that are here that wants to vote has been able to vote. It has been quiet for a while.
Yeah.
There was another one. So,
So
I guess.
Wait for
And
more.
don't leave. After you voted, don't leave. We will.
Please, yeah, please stay.
Yeah.
Yes, because what we will do now is to go in another meeting. I guess we have to leave this meeting to go in the other one. Yeah.
So
but you
don't
have the link?
Yeah, we have the link. So do I need to end the polling or we just leave it?
Yeah, you can end the polling.
Okay.
And the audience, please don't leave. We just go out for 2 minutes and we come back.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll definitely come back.
There is no breakout room, so we just
you can talk. You can talk to each other. And what was the best of
CAiSE? Share your.
Thank you for staying with us.
Yeah, we are back.
Yeah,
we are back. So.
Yes, we have a verdict, I guess. Yeah.
Violetta is presenting.
I already announced, sorry. I didn't manage to get come back. And the winner is it's based on the votes. Purely based on the number of votes. Yeah, Abdelzoud Berkan, are you here? So you were appreciated by most of the
Yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, yeah, we can. We also see you.
Okay, thank you very much. I am very honored. I'm very happy, and thanks for all the votes, and thanks for the feedback that was given, and thanks to the mentors and also to my supervisors, Professor Khakpour and Professor Sepp van der Broeke. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I hope that all PhD students that have presented in this year's Doctoral Consortium has been given good feedback. I mean, people are somewhat different in how long they have been doing their work, but hopefully have been able to take into account if you are in your first year or second year, or well, which is, I guess people have mostly been in the first or second year, so that you have time to well, take this into account and discuss this feedback, obviously, with your supervisor. It might be the supervisor have some other idea, but at least now we have got some external input from people in the community. So hopefully that has been very useful. I see it's 3 o'clock, so
yeah.
you might.
I think. Yeah, I think on behalf of all the 3 chairs, I think we would like to congratulate Abdul, and for your presentation was very clear and it's based on the votes. And but we also would like to congratulate our student participants into this Dr. Consortium, and you already did a great job by getting into the consortium and presenting your work. And maybe they asked about the challenging questions. But I think all of this is to hopefully help you getting, a progress further, getting good advice or good input along your progress further, and to have a very successful PhD. But all of you did a great job, and we're so impressed. And your proposal, your presentation, some of you already take our comments into account and then improved, and then that is what we really want to see, and you've done a great job. Thank you very much. And again, also thank you for all the mentors, and thank you for being with us, spending your time reviewing the paper and attending the presentation, providing students comments, feedback, and thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.